Hey everyone, welcome back to New JANG City. I'm going to talk about what's going on with the zoo and its reconstruction project. To be perfectly honest with you, over the past week and a half or so, I've been a little bit stuck. Haven't been moving forward at a consistent pace. Just, sometimes that happens with creative projects. You get a little bit of a creative block, your mind just isn't flexible enough to move forward, and you just kind of have to go with the flow when that happens. But I have been able to get through some of that. I've made some major decisions which have been not at all easy. And, let me just show you where I'm at and talk about what I'm thinking about next. So the big deal is that I have decided to give up on my goal, my dream of having a working Lego monorail based zoo train going around this. I tried many different possibilities for how to make that work. There are definitely ways to make that work. There's enough room here to make that work. And I tried a few different layout possibilities for it and different ideas for how to design the train part itself. And I ended up deciding that it was best for me, for what I want to do, for the specific things that I want to have in this space, to leave that out. So you're going to see a little bit of monorail track over there. Just ignore that. Or just look at it as pieces of plastic. It doesn't represent actual monorail system that's going to be in place here. No monorail in this, but you will see some little zoo trains. So I have a couple of options that I put together for just rubber-tired, road-based ones that'll be going around. I've also considered putting these on tracks, but this is just the best the best compromise that I could come up with, because I really do want to have a zoo train around here, and even if it doesn't move, just having something that represents that original goal, that original idea, that brings my very strong enjoyment of trains into this space and makes sense contextually. Well, it's got to happen in some way. So it's going to happen, and all I need to do to accommodate that is make sure my paths are wide enough. So I figured out a route for where they'll go. I want I want there to be only one stop where, it won't be in motion in universe. So preferably that'll be somewhere around here towards the front. I might need to angle it or something. I don't know just yet what I'm going to do here. I'm going to talk about other stuff that you see around here, but train will stop here. You'll get on, and then the idea is that it'll go around just here, not back through that extra little area we'll talk about in a minute, but it'll go just around here, and then it'll go down into the tunnel, into the space under there, and then it'll do a loop inside the hillside, and then come back out and come around just here. So looking at it from the other side, again, the main entrance is out there. The main stop will be somewhere in that area, and then the train will go here, and you can see just an idea of how it would be turning along through this wider path, and would go through there and down into the tunnel, emerge here, and then come out this way. This is actually going to have a bridge where it'll gain some elevation, and it'll go down, and it'll return to the stop. Will I have two zoo trains? Well, it is possible. It is certainly possible. I could have multiple in universe doing their circuit, and they would just be on different schedules, offset a little bit. They would need to not be going through this space at the same time, because I'm not going to make this pathway so wide that two of them would be able to pass each other side by side. I got to have room for the regular patrons, just regular pedestrians, to get out of the way and, still be comfortable and still be able to move around while the zoo trains are making their rounds. So I've taken the basic shape that I last showed, which was just one possible iteration of how the paths could be, and I modified it a little bit. I tried some different things, but I really liked where that was going overall. So the idea of having the big elephants in the center, they're just, they're centerpieces, and it really makes sense to have them in the middle where, people can be looking from all around, because they're going to draw a lot of attention. So having people be able to see them all around, I think, makes sense. And that'll be a wet area, so there will be a stream coming through, maybe a pond, so that would be a good place to have my hippo. I don't know if I'll make a new hippo or just leave that funny looking old one. Also the crocodigators, and the pathway here that has the elevation where there will be an overpass, a little bridge, will allow that water to go through, and then there will just be a little pond over here. So as you can see, I've been putting in some animals just to indicate where I'm thinking of putting major exhibits right now. So this would be the big cats exhibit. I don't know exactly how it would be decorated just yet, but I figured it would make sense to put all those together. And yeah, I do want to have one up on the cliff. That's not exactly a perfect position right there, but I think that it would be a cool idea to let visitors be aware of the fact that these cats are able to climb. And of course, keeping them in place and everything, well, that's going to be another story, but we'll get to that at a later date. I'm also bringing back my original 2013 idea of having a petting zoo area. Just a domesticated animals area where smaller kids could go in and directly interact with the animals. So the idea there with that house, which is actually a converted pencil holder, it's intended to go in an office or on a desk or something. I just put the rest of the roof on it. Now that's just to stand in to let you know that there will be like a barn type structure there to protect the animals when it's raining or something like that. And also just to have a little bit of indoor area. It just made sense to me. And since I have this extra space, I'm very glad to finally be able to make that original idea a reality, because I didn't have enough room previously in the original position of the zoo in the old city to make that happen. So that'll be happening. Putting the bears down here could work out, I think, making sure that I don't have too many of them in there. But I thought of having that rock there, and then have kind of like a cave back here where you could see some rarer, small, miniature bears. Yeah, just some different stuff. And then over here having the kind of like, I've got some stuff on the ground, don't worry about that, but like the Arctic type of exhibit, instead of, what was it before, a 4x6 square, I think it was like a 4x6 square, or a rectangle, rather, that just barely held 3 penguins in it. This is much, much better. Allows me to use at least one of my polar bears. And this space over here, just for random, I don't know, just herbivores, be like the plains kind of area or something. I don't know. I'm also going to look back through my blog. I have old pictures of my original giraffe design. This is a smaller one here. I had created a larger one originally and then decided to do something even smaller based on the size of that original zoo. But I think if I go back and use that bigger design as a template to create a new one that's compatible with this color scheme, I can have multiple ages, or possibly like a male and female together, and they would be different sizes. And I liked the look of the old one as well, so I'm going to see if I can reuse that as well. Probably, again, staying with the same color scheme. And then this is the most recent thing that I just came up with. I previously had the primates in a different spot, but I really like the idea of putting them over here. This makes total sense to me, because this whole monorail thing back here that I told you earlier is not going to be a monorail. That represents conceptually a pathway, an elevated pathway. I want to have an elevated area up here where people can come up and take advantage of a second level. That allows me to build more things in the same space by going vertical with it a little bit. So my idea was to have over here on the upper level the spot where you can get food, right? And have just a little patio area out that could double as an observation deck as well. Keep the restrooms underneath, got space for that now. And then I would have probably a spiral staircase to get up there, as well as an elevator. And the elevator would look like it was wooden, and rustic and old, and probably have some vines coming off of it, but that would be for accessibility. So that I would actually be able to get people in wheelchairs up there as well. That's pretty important. Speaking of which, I will try to make a wheelchair car specifically. So maybe if I have 2 zoo trains, that would be good. 2 zoo trains, one of them would have a wheelchair car on it, so that I would have an accessible option for the zoo train to go around. But here's the thing. Here's how this would all work together with this exhibit down below with the primates, is that down here you'd be able to see some of them, but when you come up here you'd be able to see more, because you'd be amongst the trees. There would be multiple trees here. There'd be a whole stand of trees that would be relatively vertical, and you'd be able to, get up close to monkeys and things that would be up in the tree. I just think that would work out really, really well. And then having this second level and being able to come over here, I think that it makes sense to put the aviary up there because, well, first of all, birds in the air kind of makes sense, but also it's such a nice thing. And I want us viewers of this place to be able to see that from, if not all angles, most angles. So having that right here kind of featured for us, for our sake, I think is really going to help. It's going to help to extract some of the enjoyment of this display once it's put together. And then below that, because I've got this awkward shape over here, I thought that I would put the entomology exhibit and a reptile and amphibian kind of area down here in its own building. So this would be, that's a very common thing with zoos. They'll have specific buildings for specific groups of exhibits, and oftentimes those are built as add-ons. So that was the exact idea that I had when I built my original entomology wing, as I called it, for the original zoo, and just, expand that out. Maybe I'll have the insects and such on one side, and then reptiles and amphibian type things on the other, or kind of go back and forth or mix them. I'm not sure, but I do want to have at least these things in there, at least these things here in there, and then the entomology stuff is a nice add-on, but is relatively optional to me. I do have extra space on the second level as well, so there's a little bit of possibility of doing something there. Other things that I'm still thinking about structure-wise include the gift shop, where to put that, because I do want to put that in a place where it'll be kind of in the way, where a lot of people walking around the zoo will see it. It's something that you always want to do when designing an area that'll have retail accommodations. To put it bluntly, you want to trap your visitors into buying stuff. So I just want to kind of consider that, in the design of this. I want to put a lot of feet on the ground near the gift shop, and with big windows and a nice display that kind of attracts them in to buy stuff. And then I still need to figure out where to put like ticket booths and information booths and stuff like that. Right now I've got the idea of using the space over here, but it doesn't feel good enough to me. I want this to be a very welcoming entrance, which is difficult to do without having a huge plaza in the middle, which then takes a ton of space away from potential, exhibits and places where I can actually put the animals and such. So I may yet change the shape of some of this here. This is the area that's most likely to remain in flux, because I really like the idea of having a long entrance where people can walk in and then they can just be kind of in awe, and they can continue to walk, and they can look side to side. Let me actually take you over to that side. So, from here, from the street, I'm thinking about what it'll be like for people walking through here. Right now you see rocks, so that's not good. But that'll be the spot. Just look through the arch. That'll be the spot where the train will stop and everything. But it's not right. And thinking left and right, okay, we can start to see, again, just looking through the arch, we can start to see, okay, there's a pathway out there. Looks like there's some cool stuff to look at there. There's going to be a bridge there, and as you walk in, without going too far in, you'll see that there is the petting zoo area to your left. Over here, you'll definitely be able to see the pathway out to other things, but just generally right now, this is looking very empty and kind of plain. I want it to be welcoming. I want it to be inviting, and I want it to give you hints of what's to come. So that needs to be worked on yet. That's the main thing that needs to be worked on quite a bit. But other than that, I am pretty happy with the progress here in terms of ideation, just coming up with ideas, figuring out how I'm going to do this. I've not started actually building anything. Nothing here can be seen as permanent in any way, shape, or form. And it'll continue to be in flux once I even start the construction process. Another little thing that I have definitely decided, I'm once again going to go with an elevated surface. So when you get into the zoo, or on the way to entering the zoo, you're going to go up a small ramp, and the whole thing is going to be elevated a bit. above the normal street level so that I can have dips in there potentially. If I want to have like a water area that's depressed, that's a little bit lower. I want to have some elevation here. I can't do too much within the exhibits. I'm going to be limited there because as soon as you start doing elevation, you do too much of it and you start hiding things. So I have to be very careful with this limited space here, but I'll try to do some of that and have some other things that I'm thinking about that I could do with elevation, but I need to do some serious work to consider that. So I'm not even going to talk about it yet, just in case it ends up being a terrible idea and I don't go forward. But that's where I'm at right now. Sorry, I don't have anything really cool and, closer to finished to show you, but this is, again, part of the actual process. This is what I go through anytime that I'm doing any kind of project out here. There are, a lot of thoughts that go into the designs of everything, thinking from the minifig perspective, thinking from our perspective now more than ever to make sure that things are going to look good on camera and look good for me as I just walk into the room and making sure that I can enjoy this stuff when it's done. And sometimes, it can take longer than I would prefer for stuff to actually start happening, tangibly. But I'm going to keep taking you along for the ride and just show you how things go naturally at their own pace. But appreciate you coming along for the ride. I hope that you've enjoyed this regardless. And I'll talk to you again as soon as I can.